there, fictional friends, and welcome to another episode of Fully Booked. I'm Megan.
And I'm Shireen.
And we are officially in the month of May. We've talked about this, it needs syllables.
I know, but there's only so much I can do with one syllable. I can't call it May-tember.
You could.
May-tember!
Okay. This should be a really good sort of starting point for us as to how ridiculous these episodes are going to be
definitely.
for this month. So, oh boy. Oh my God. Okay. I realized that we had done a ton of pre-recording of stuff a while back, and I realized in editing them how fucking long I sound sick in those episodes.
But it's because we did so much
so early, and I went on vacation, got sick while I was on vacation. We came back, and I was still sick and stayed that way for a while and sounded that way for a while.
Yeah, you sounded very congested.
Yes, exactly. So this is me heading into the first episode in a while where I feel like I don't have to cough. And my voice doesn't sound weirdly kind of hoarse or more nasal than usual. Like, it's nasal enough as it is. I don't really need the help in that department. So, so yay. So exciting.
Yay, May-tember.
Yeah, I don't feel like I've worn myself out by the end of it, which is kind of nice. Anyway, since it's a new month, obviously, we're heading into the new theme, and what we decided to do for the month of May was historical fiction. I'm pretty sure that we're heading into this with a very loose sort of concept of historical fiction, honestly.
Yeah, it's like our preference of historical fiction.
Pretty much, yeah, because it's our podcast.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. So to, I guess, kick things off, also, it's the month of May, and I'm sure that everybody who clicked on this episode and is listening to it is also well aware that May 16th, part 1 of the 3rd season of Bridgerton drops on Netflix.
Which is basically the whole reason why we're doing historical fiction.
I feel like it also felt like a really good time for a rewatch, a revisit
totally.
for probably both of us. Honestly.
Yeah.
We decided to do a rewatch. So we're going to be covering season 1 this week, and then in a couple of weeks we're going to have a little bit of a reprieve in between, a slightly shorter episode, and then we're going to cover season 2, which by the time this episode, no, but by the time the season 2 episode is out, yes, I'm aware that the 3rd season will already be out, and I'm sure that we're going to be talking about our predictions for the 3rd season at that point, but we won't have seen it already because we are pre-recording the episode, so I don't want anyone to be like, oh my God, you guys are so fucking stupid if you've not watched it yet.
Yeah. Also, let the record show that my actual favorite season of Bridgerton is Queen Charlotte, so.
Yeah, well, that's okay. Followed by probably season 2.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Anyway, it's fine. We'll get into it. So, okay.
Miss Daphne Bridgerton.
You have no idea what it is to have one's entire life reduced to a single moment.
The time has come for the social season.
Tighter! She to breathe, Mama.
My name is Lady Whistledown. You do not know me, but I know you. This is what they have been trained for since birth. Which young ladies might succeed at securing a match?
You've always amused me, Miss Bridgerton. Ever since I was a schoolboy and you were...
All but 5?
Miss Bridgerton!
Oh, pardon me.
Forgive me.
For the, uninitiated, I'd be surprised if you were listening to this if you haven't seen the show.
Where have you been?
Well, it's also blown up over, the world over at this point. But for the uninitiated, Bridgerton is based on the series of novels, much more than 8 at this point, by an author by the name of Julia Quinn, who I believe started publishing them in the early 2000s. They've been The Duke and I, which is
around for a while.
Yeah, the Duke and I, which is the basis of the first season, that novel I think was published in the either late 90s or early 2000s, if I'm not mistaken. They've been out for quite some time now, so it's really interesting to me that just, I guess, Shonda Rhimes' production company picked up these books and they just and now it's just skyrocketed them, and I feel like everybody has read them.
They do such a beautiful job.
They do as well. It's a pretty expansive sort of world that they've created with it, which I think it's so immersive that I think it's been so easy for people to kind of fall in love with the series as a whole, with the characters, with the world that they exist in, all that stuff. I mean, a lot of people really like a period piece as well.
Yeah, totally. But
right?
I feel like they pushed it one step further with like the costumes and the sets.
Oh,
and
definitely.
Stuff. And,
yeah.
You know, they've made it like whimsical and
they've
like
made it
modern in some ways.
They've kind of made it like Regency fantasy.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
it's not incredibly historically accurate in terms of the costumes and obviously the modernization of the music choices and all of those sorts of things, which have brought things into a different. Think Baz Luhrmann's Great Gatsby. Like there's an element of modernization in with the period that it's set in, basically. So it's like a little bit. It's got like a mix of that. So so the premise of the novels, each novel individually follows one of the Bridgerton siblings. There are 8 of them in total. I'm going to go through the whole list right now. So,
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Can you remember all their names?
Yes.
Okay.
I figured it. I remembered the other day, and I was like, okay, I'm going to talk about this. So there are 4 boys and 4 girls in total. So they're all they're all named in alphabetical order. It's funny. Anthony, Benedict, Colin, and then Daphne, Eloise, Francesca, and the 2 youngest are Gregory and Hyacinth.
Way to go.
Yeah.
Wow.
So A through H, there are 8 kids. The original series of novels that were written, now there are like other expansions and short stories and side stories and things like that as well that she's added to that universe. Okay. But the original, that's it, sort of 8 novels. Each individual novel follows each Bridgerton sibling with their own love story, basically.
It's their love story, their marriage. What's really fun about, you know, the storylines here is that, you know, it is supposed to be a period piece where it's like, let's just get you married off to someone because that's your duty and we have to get you married or whatnot. But it's also about the love, you know, like they all fall in love, and it's just so sweet.
Yes, because this is romance at the end of the day, and so people want a happily ever after, and they want someone. They don't want there to be like a marriage of convenience that stays a marriage of convenience. Like even if it starts that way, no one wants it to finish that way.
Of course,
right? So the first novel in the series, The Duke and I, follows Daphne Bridgerton, who's actually the 4th sibling. After, interestingly, she kicks off the series, but after her, they all go in alphabetical order. So then it goes, Anthony, Benedict, Colin, and then Eloise, Francesca, Gregory, and Hyacinth. Like it all goes in that order.
Yeah. Is there any reason why they start with Daphne?
I have no idea.
Okay.
That would actually be something I would need to look into. And if somebody knows and you want to like leave a comment or something, please feel free, because I haven't really looked into it that far.
Yeah.
But I found it really interesting. I've read 6 of them.
Okay.
I've read Daphne's, and then Anthony, Benedict, Colin, Eloise, and Francesca's was the last one that I read. So I haven't read the 2 youngest, and that's it. I don't know. That's a good question, though. I'd have to look into that a little bit. If I figure it out, if I look into it and I find an answer before the second episode, I'll let you guys know.
Yeah, I mean, I started listening to the audiobook for this because I just discovered audiobooks.
So funny.
I'm such a boomer.
Seriously, this is like a millennial having boomer moments where she's just there and she's like, I don't know how Instagram works. I only find TikTok videos by Googling them.
Or if someone sends
me something, and then sometimes they work and sometimes they don't because I don't have the app on my phone.
But I've just discovered audiobooks, and so I thought, well, I'll try and read or listen to The Duke and I.
Yes.
And I was just kind of like surprised that Daphne had been out for 2 seasons in the book.
Yeah, very different. I mean,
different.
So I would say that the Duke and I overall, yes, the general premise is incredibly similar in terms of like the major plot points. I would say are largely the same, but a lot of the nuance and obviously the extra development and stuff, because this is a whole 8-episode season.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot more added to it. And there is a much more modern sensibility in the sense that Julia Quinn, you know, wrote these novels and to make them like a proper Regency period piece. Whereas with a modern show, I think that the producers and the creators going into this, I think were aware that they were going to have to do something to jazz it up a little bit and not make it quite a strict period piece, because people probably wouldn't have been that interested. A modern audience isn't going to pay that much attention to that.
No.
Unless they're really looking for something historically accurate. But that's something that you expect expect a little bit more in terms of like the BBC and things like that. When you're going into Netflix, people aren't really looking at that quite as much, I would say.
It's true. Like, like I'm thinking of BBC, like Pride and Prejudice, and like
absolutely
all the adaptations they did are very much more historically accurate, but it lacks that, like you're saying, that level of like pizzazz or like sparkle.
We haven't really had an audience, I think, that wanted that since probably the Keira Knightley Pride and Prejudice, and that was like 2005 or 6. Like that was a minute ago. Yeah. Anyway, so basically the overall premise of this season is Daphne Bridgerton is entering her first season in London society, which was like a normal thing for girls to be presented to society at a pretty young age, and basically thrust into the marriage market.
Yeah. Yeah, when they're out in society, they're for sale.
They're marriageable. Yeah. Well, I mean, technically, yes, because they come with the dowry that's being paid to the family of the man that they're marrying. So, So this is Daphne's first season. She is presented to the queen, and her whole thing and why she becomes like the center of attention in London at that time is because the queen declares her the diamond of the season, which basically means that she is the most perfect, most eligible young lady who's been presented to her, which pretty much means that all the men are like, okay, well, I want to marry that one because that's the best one. That's the pick of the crop because the queen said so. So I want that one. So yeah. And this follows her through having to like dodge some suitors who are less than great to be dealing with, which leads her into meeting Simon Hastings, who has recently returned to London after the death of his father, who has just been named the Duke of Hastings, and he's returned to deal with his father's affairs. He does not want anything to do with society or getting married at all.
No.
And happens to meet Daphne. They decide to form an alliance with one another.
Because all the women are throwing themselves on the Duke of Hastings.
And the moms.
He's the equivalent of the diamond of the season.
Yeah, he's like the male equivalent of that. He's the most eligible bachelor. So, yeah. So they want him, of course, and his vast fortune as well for their daughters in order to secure, their own.
I love the mamas in this.
Oh, the mamas are
so
great.
Funny.
And Daphne is trying to because her oldest brother Anthony has been like sort of hindering attempts that she's been making in order to find a husband, and he's not been very helpful at all. I find he's cock blocking her like left and right at this point.
He is, until his mother is like, well, so like Anthony is an interesting one in this season because he's clearly like still very immature.
Yeah,
he's like had to take on the role of Viscount, which I was going to look up who a Viscount is.
Yeah, okay, so yes. So Anthony's been made the Viscount Bridgerton because I feel their father passed away, I want to say 8 years prior.
Yeah.
7 or 8 years prior. Unfortunately, due to something totally innocuous, unfortunately, he obviously had a pretty bad allergy to bees, and nobody had EpiPens at this time. So unfortunately, he's stung by a bee one day and goes into full anaphylactic shock, and he dies. And he died in front of Anthony and in front of Violet Bridgerton, who's their mother, the Viscountess.
While she was pregnant with Hyacinth.
While she was pregnant with the youngest, Hyacinth, which they get into it a lot more in the second season, so I'm sure we'll talk about it more then, but that's just like the background that you need. So Anthony was thrust into this role before he was ready for it, clearly.
Way before. And he's also very proud and very immature.
Yes.
And so Violet says to him, if it were your father, he would have already had a match for Daphne.
Yeah, so
we wouldn't have had to
fix this shit.
Go through all this.
Yeah.
And so him in a knee-jerk reaction, he's like, fine, you're going to marry this guy who's
horrible.
Peter Pettigrew equivalent.
Oh, yeah, gross.
Sniveling and gross.
What is it, Nigel something?
He's
gross.
It doesn't even matter.
He doesn't stick around,
gross.
thank God. And so anyway, in an effort to avoid
Nigel,
this Burbrook, that's it. Sorry. In an effort to avoid marrying Nigel Burbrook, and in Simon's effort to avoid having to get married at all, the two of them concoct a plan to pretend that they're courting, basically, that they're seeing one another in potential preparation for a proposal, and that will make, because he's so eligible, it will make her seem more desirable, and other men will want to marry her, and it will make him seem like he's off the market, and these young women and their mothers will leave him alone so he can just do what he wants to do. I think that in this season, people I don't know. I'm pretty sure, like, because I'm sure a lot of people would be like, oh, it's like an enemies to lovers arc, but I don't think that this season is. This season for me was more of a friends to lovers arc.
Yeah, because they definitely weren't enemies. They just kind of like bickered, like in a fun way.
There was like some contention at the beginning between the two of them because they both made assumptions about one another, but they have really great banter almost right away, and they get along with one another well. So I feel like it's more of a friends to lovers arc that they kind of experience throughout the course of the season, because obviously we're in a romance story, so obviously feelings develop as we're pretending. The fake dating tropes everywhere.
And just to add before we continue, there are 5 royal titles, obviously aside from, Queen
the king and queen, yes, of course.
Princesses.
Yeah.
So in rank, they are top to bottom: Duke, Marquess, Earl, Viscount, and Baron.
Okay, yes. So, right, that's it. Because we are given to understand that Simon outranks Antony in terms of like societal royal court norms.
By a lot, looking at this.
Yeah, like by like 4 ranks, basically.
Well, by 3 ranks, yeah. So obviously all the mamas want the Duke.
Yes, of course, because he's the most eligible. Like Antony's up there too, but he's also made it pretty clear that he's not looking for marriage right now.
Yeah,
so.
like but he's also pretty crotchety. Like,
oh my gosh, he's like an old man. He's so funny. He's like an old man already.
Chopped sideburn.
You guys are gonna notice as every season happens. I'm sure everybody's noticed, but like I love the glow ups that occur between seasons for everyone. At the time that we're recording this, they've just recently dropped the trailer for season 3, which we're gonna be talking about later. Don't worry about it.
We will get there.
We'll get there when we get there. It has to air first, so I have nothing to talk about otherwise. And they've just dropped like the trailer for season 3, and I just love that every season, the focus of the season, that person always gets this like mad glow up. The 3rd season is fun because you get 2 characters that we already know glowing up.
Yeah.
Which we haven't experienced at all so far. In season 1, there would have been no glow up to happen because we hadn't met anyone. In season 2, we got Antony.
Yeah, but like it was like they chopped off his mutton chops.
And there was something like, yeah, we knew he was hot already.
Like he was hot.
All you have to do
really crotchety.
Yeah, all you have to do is fix his hair a bit. It's fine. So of course feelings between Simon and Daphne develop, even though particularly he is trying to fight this because he's made this vow to not get married and definitely not father children, because he experienced, unfortunately, quite a bit of emotional abuse at the hands of his father, who was very cruel to him as a child. His mother died in childbirth, and he made a vow right before his father died,
on
basically,
his deathbed,
that he would. His father was so obsessed with the Hastings line continuing, and he made a vow that he would never father children so that his father would never get his wish, basically because he was such a cruel and horrible man. And it is, like, there are many, many scenes where you do see that throughout the course of the season. He was awful. He was horrible. It was really sad.
But this is where that level of, like, modernization comes to the series, because, like, I feel like back then he would not have been making these vows because his father was a cruel man.
I mean, that does happen in the book.
Oh, I know, but I mean, like, in actual, like...
I know what you mean, yes.
That time period.
And in society, it wouldn't have really... I'm sure that the thought process wouldn't have been the same. You're right.
And you actually do see, like, side note, in Queen Charlotte, you do actually see... Hastings, his father.
Yes, you do.
Is there when they start handing out the titles to... as they call them, the people who look like her people.
Yeah, so okay, yeah, like clarification for all of this is that because the TV series is much more modern, what they've done is introduced like having people of color in these very prominent roles in society, which we get it, whatever, it's not historically accurate, but it's good and it works.
And I love this even more and because it gives depth.
It adds a really interesting, additional level because it's also spoken about in the different series, in the different seasons. So like in the first season, there is conversation because Simon, who's played by, what's his name, René Page?
René Jean Page?
No, I don't know. That's not it.
That's not his name?
No.
Oh, God.
No, I'm telling you. He's black, and there are other black characters in...
You're right, Reggae John Page.
Yeah, and there are other black characters in the season as well who are also, have conversations about the fact that because their queen is black, they've been able to actually rise through the ranks in society, and the marriage between her and the king has opened so many more possibilities for them to be able to achieve more. It would have been really nice if that were actually historically true. That would have been cool. But anyway, but it's a very interesting extra flavor and layer to add to
Definitely.
the story, because it's not just like we don't ignore it. They actually do acknowledge it, and it doesn't have to be the focal point, but it matters, and it's interesting for that to be something that's included as well. So, after there, once we're done fighting the feelings, there is an encounter, an inappropriate encounter between Simon and Daphne. In the garden one evening. They make out. It's fine. In the book, he like gets her naked from like the top down. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's more action going on like earlier than you're
Wow,
like,
that would have been like really
very racy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But bodice rippers are bodice rippers. That's part of what these novels are for as well, right? Is like the romance and like the erotic aspect of that comes along with it as well, and the sexualization of things. So it's normal.
You know what I saw? They're adding a feature to Bridgerton on Netflix where you can skip the saucy scenes.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh, the Puritans strike again.
And apparently, what's her name? Nicola Coughlan, who plays Penelope.
Yes.
So the focal point of season 3, she was like really stressed out about her racy scenes because she's Irish Catholic.
Yeah, I know. And I'm sure
like,
with her,
oh my God.
for her family, she was like, fuck. Yeah.
Anyway. I digress.
Yeah. And so we follow basically, after this occurs, we follow the rest of their love story, from them trying to deny their feelings to one another, to admitting their feelings to one another, to a deception, mostly on Simon's part, that causes quite a rift between the two of them, which, sort of leads through, you got to get through like your third act breakup, and then you get back together at the end, because a lot of romance kind of keeps that. It's fine. We're running through our tropes, guys. We get it. We're fine. We're fake. We've got friends to lovers. We've got fake dating. We've got a third act breakup. We've got a guaranteed happily ever after. I'm just going to run through all of them as we go, and everybody knows what I'm talking about. So it's fine. Okay. I want to talk about the Bridgertons themselves, like the family and the characters in the show, because I feel like they're all so individual and so fun. And I love that you can see, as we're progressing through the seasons, we're getting extra bits and pieces about different characters and who they are and their development and everything. So it's interesting to see, as the seasons are progressing, like how, not that like I don't, because I don't hate any of them, but like how opinions are shifting in terms of like, maybe this one was my favorite at first, but now that I'm seeing so much more of this one, I really like them as well. And I feel like
Eloise has been my favorite from day one. She's so funny.
Well, so Eloise's character is so perfect for a modern audience because of the way that she fights against, and I don't even know if I'd consider it just fighting against like societal norms. She's terrified of them.
Well, yeah, like I don't know if she's terrified of them. She's like so full of rage about them,
Yeah, but I mean, like I found as like the second season developed, like she's scared. Yeah. Like it freaks her out a lot.
Well, for sure. I mean, like I think in the first season, like it's kind of like funny using air quotes because she's not out yet, right?
No,
so
that's
she's
true.
kind of like a fly on the wall of it. And she's always making these quips and these points about, like maybe the woman doesn't want to be dressed up like a peacock and put out in front of everyone.
Yeah,
like
so that's it. So she hates the idea of women simply being there to get married and have babies and having no other function whatsoever. She feels that women are too intelligent and too capable, and she feels herself to be too capable as well.
Of course. I mean, she's always reading.
Yes.
She's always got an opinion about everything.
So I think that's part of it too, is that she's allowed herself to explore other ideas, and so it puts her at odds with a lot of people, especially
Daphne.
Yes, yeah, that's it, where they do have a little bit of a contentious relationship, and I feel like it's easy off the cuff to side with Eloise, but what I really like about like Daphne's character is the additional, for her as the oldest girl of the family, she knows what her role is, and that unfortunately her finding a good marriage is so important for the family as a whole, because if hers is a good match, all of her subsequent siblings will have an easier time securing good matches, particularly her sisters, good matches and good families, and good futures as well.
Because it's like maintaining the Bridgerton name. Yes,
that's it. And they're a very well-respected family. My understanding is that their father was a very well-respected Viscount. Yeah. And also all of these kids are kind of living under the shadow that, of course, the Regency period, and even sometimes now as well, marriages of convenience were a very normal thing to be happening. It was basically a contract that was being drawn up between people's parents.
Yes, based on like who their families
Who
were,
their family is, how wealthy
how
they
much
are.
money they had,
yeah.
how
That's
they
it.
were regarded in society.
Exactly. So, I guess the difference for the Bridgerton family as a whole is that their mother Violet and their father Edmund, I believe, they were what everyone refers to as a love match. So they were a couple who married because they really, really loved each other, and you do get a lot of shades of that throughout the course of both seasons that have aired so far. Is just they loved each other a lot, and unfortunately Edmund's passing was incredibly difficult for Violet to deal with for quite a while. And again, like there's more talk about that in the second season a little bit, because there's more, as Antony was the oldest at the time, he experienced probably the most in terms of the after effects of all of this. And I know they were all affected by it, but I think for him it was like a different kind of level, because he was old enough to be fully cognizant of what was going on and be immediately thrust into responsibility that he was not prepared for and not expecting to take over anytime soon at all.
Didn't really have the personality for. Like,
no, he's doing
when you
this
see him
because
in the first season, like you're kind of like, ugh.
No, he's doing this because he has to.
Yeah, definitely,
because he's supposed to. So, and so I think that's it. Following all of that, it's normal, especially for the girls. Like for Daphne, she wants to be married to someone that she's in love with.
Yeah. It's what she's always dreamed of,
course,
and that's
because
what they
she saw
keep saying.
She saw her parents, and she saw how much they loved each other.
And I think she's supposed to be like your typical, Regency-era like bride.
Yeah,
like
she's the closest
she
to.
She dreams of getting married and being a mother. Like Simon says it multiple times. Like, I know that it's your dream to be a mother. You know. And she wants to have many, many children, and so it's just interesting because then you see the differences between each character, and like some of them go through some character development in the first season as well.
I would say in the first and second season, we get to see a lot of character development for the oldest boys because they're the oldest. So you get obviously Antony, and because he's also the subject of the second season as well, and the main like focus of the second season. So there's a ton of him that I'm sure we'll get into in the next episode a little bit more, but you do get to see particularly the older siblings experience start to really shift their perspective about things. Benedict, I would say, is the most kind of floundering in terms of not being sure of what he wants to do with his life and who he is, because he's an artist. And he's very passionate about it, but he seems to doubt his artistic abilities quite regularly.
Well, I think it's also because, like, if you look at, like, who Antony is, and,
I know,
like,
they don't.
The expectations, it's kind of like, who's really encouraging him to pursue his artistic, tendencies
and
or whatever.
as things progress, his siblings do.
Yeah, they do
encourage.
but
they
he,
do, but
he has to find the courage to actually voice it.
And he has a lot of self-doubt in that,
Yeah.
and it does show, like, it does come through, and it's so interesting because you can see that once he is enthusiastic and he gets into it, he's very good.
I mean, it does set him back. It's in the second season, obviously.
I'm curious about in season 3 also, that we'll see how that goes. I don't know.
In the first season is when he kind of, starts speaking to people who are artists and like, uncovering the world of artists
and his passion for maybe pursuing that a little bit more. And also, the luck that he has, which is, again, the interesting sort of contrast between him and Antony in not being the oldest, that he is not foisted with so much responsibility, the kind of responsibility that Antony has in order to continue running everything for the Bridgerton family, and he doesn't have the same kind of expectation, so it allows him a bit more freedom of movement.
However, I kind of felt like in the first season that Benedict had this level of like uncertainty about himself because he's second in line. It's like if anything happened to Antony, then it would fall on him, and so
you can see that stresses him the fuck out.
It's kind of like he doesn't allow himself to be his own person because of this fear that he's going to have to take over, and it probably stems from the fact that Antony had to take over like
after his father and his
notice.
That's it, because their father died incredibly suddenly, obviously. So it wasn't like a progressive thing where he was able to learn that much. He really had to learn as he went. There was no choice in the matter. So I think you're right. I think that Benedict probably has a lot of that lingering fear, because there is a scene in this season where there's a duel because of the inappropriate encounter in the garden. There is a duel that's meant to take place between Antony and Simon because, of course, Antony is like, no, you defiled my sister. So, and you are...
It's a matter of honor.
Yeah, a matter of honor. And he's refusing to marry her because he doesn't want to have kids, blah, 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 blah. Anyway,
so stupid.
So, of course, then a duel, even though that's illegal, there's a duel that's brought forth, and when you have a duel, you need a second, like another person with you, and so they each bring someone with them. Antony brings Benedict because he's obviously the second oldest brother, so it makes sense. But there is a quick conversation where Antony's only focused on like, okay, let's fucking do this and just get it done, and Benedict is like, okay, what happens?
Yeah.
What's going to happen? And he's like, well, maybe he'll shoot me. And Benedict's like, well, what happens if he shoots you? Well, you're going to take over as Viscount. And he's like, okay, well, what happens if you kill him? Well, I'm going to have to leave the country, so you're still going to have to take over as Viscount. And you can see that Benedict's like, oh my God.
Yeah, he's like, this was not part of the plan. Like, I just started enjoying my art.
Yeah, that's it. Like, I've just started, like, experimenting a little bit and understanding a little bit more about what it is that I want to do. And he's like, what the fuck? And yeah, you see a lot of that. Yeah. A lot of that. So there's his development, which is happening a little bit more slowly because we haven't gotten to his season yet. Hopefully we will, but we're not there yet. And then following him, there's Colin. And I would say that Colin is really good he's really good at being the sort of happy-go-lucky one, the little sort of like, oh, I haven't experienced very much and I want to, but I'm also like, I'm just like a big flirt and I'm fun and I'm this and I'm that. And
but he also seems very confident in himself.
He is very confident for sure, but he also, his own floundering is sort of like, well, I haven't seen anything. I haven't experienced anything. And I don't
see the world.
Yeah, and I don't like that. I want to do that. Yeah. So his arc throughout the season leads to him leaving on a tour, basically, like of other places in Europe. He goes to Greece and stuff. It's a whole thing. So that's like sort of where that leads him. Because you can tell that he's in this middle ground where it would take quite a lot for him to have to be in charge of anything. So he really doesn't have to worry about any of that.
And I think that's where that level of confidence comes from,
Probably.
Right? Like, it's like he's got 2 layers in front of him.
More security there that he won't have to really deal with anything. And so, and he does have, he's young, a little bit younger, so he does have a bit of a level of immaturity, which you can see comes through pretty regularly. And also, I don't know if it's meant to be because he's younger or because this is just like the character, but oh my goodness, can this man not see what's right in front of him all the fucking time? He's so like things keep happening and you're just like, you fucking idiot. Like, are you not paying attention to anything? Everything's just like whoosh, 12 feet over my head.
Boy.
It shows.
I appreciate that they really do that there. And like, it's funny because during this season, he forms a relationship with Marina Thompson.
Yes, who is a character who shows up, basically.
And she is with child, but he doesn't know this, and so he kind of becomes infatuated with her.
Yeah. And fancies himself in love. He
does. He's not.
No.
And he proposes to her and whatnot, and, it's this whole thing where they're all like, Colin, you can't get married. Like, basically, you're too immature.
Yeah, you're like a child.
You're like a child, and he's like, well, I'm older than Daphne, and they're like, well, that's not the same, and you know it.
And also because Daphne is more responsible than Colin is. She's
the oldest girl.
She's the oldest girl. She's been aware of what her role is for a very long time and what she's supposed to do and how she's supposed to perform, and it fucking shows.
Oh, definitely.
And it's so great to see her be able to develop throughout the course of the season and develop her own self-worth more over time. That doesn't only have to go like to do with how marriageable she is. It's great. It's really great. I really like Phoebe Dynevor. I feel like her performance wasn't as lauded as it should have been in the first season because everybody was in love with Regé-Jean Page because he's a beautiful man to look at, which is nice, but he also does a great job, guys. Don't discount that. With the character and everything. So I feel like hers fell by the wayside a little bit, but she does a really good job of towing that line. Yeah. And I will say, when we're going to talk about it in the next episode, I fucking love her in the second season.
Oh, me too. Ooh. She's so confident
Daphne,
in herself.
who has become confident in her relationship, in her own self, and how observant she is about wonderful. Everyone around her. She did such a great job in that second season. So we're going to talk about that when we get to that episode as well.
Fun fact for any Brits listening, if you didn't know this, Daphne is the daughter of the woman who plays Sally on Coronation Street.
Oh, really?
And she looks like her too. It's really funny.
How long did it take you to realize that?
I was like looking at her the whole season and I'm like, she looks familiar, but like not that familiar.
Not like
you know?
I've really seen her in something. Yeah.
And as soon as I saw like who she is, I'm like, oh, that's who she is.
Okay. That's cute. Oh, there you go. Hey, for anybody across the pond listening, that's what it is. There you go. I'm sure they already know that. And we're just late to the party.
Well, you know.
Yeah, it's fine. Anyway.
Anywho.
So then, like, that's it. Following Daphne, that's it. Eloise is the one who stands out because obviously she rails the most against, like, societal expectations of
so
women in this
good.
time period. And she's funny, and she's sarcastic, and
she's made it
quick-witted.
And she has made it her mission to figure out who Lady Whistledown is.
Yes. So we haven't talked about this at all.
Yeah.
This is crazy. We're like halfway through this episode. Within all of this crap that's going on with all of the siblings and with all of the people around them as well, there are different families who are coming into the picture who they're interacting with. There are things going on. There's everything going on with the queen and her expectations. Within all of that, there is a
gossip column,
a gossip rag that's being circulated around town by an anonymous writer by the name of Lady Whistledown, and this is an overarching thing throughout the entire season. She's very, she names people in her column. She's very direct. She's very cutting in the remarks that she makes, particularly about the queen.
Oh yeah, it's like this whole like rivalry with the queen.
Yeah,
like she's constantly teasing her. And someone says at one point, I can't remember if it's in the first season or second season, like this isn't the first gossip rag that's existed, but it's the first one that calls people out by name.
I believe they say that right in the first episode.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
they're just like, because one of the girls is reading. One of the daughters is reading the column, and Daphne and her mother are like preparing her for her coming out, basically. And that's what they're saying. They're like, oh, whatever, fuck. Like, there's gossip columns, like, all over the place. And they're like, yeah, but this is the first one that names people. And it becomes this massive thing where people are trying to figure out, like, who is Lady Whistledown? Is she a member of the Ton? Is she a...
Well, the queen wants to know who she is, obviously. But I think a lot of the people of the Ton, they don't actually care
they
who
love
she
it. They
is.
just love the gossip.
Yeah,
they're just there
and they
for
just
the
don't
tea.
want to be in the gossip.
Yeah, they're just there for the tea. They're not there for anything else.
In the book, the whole thing is that Lady Whistledown talks about the Bridgertons and is like, they all look alike, and Violet's like, gasp.
I know, she's so upset about it.
Rude. And
How
it's like,
terrible.
well, that's like not
And
the
she's like,
worst thing.
yeah, but she's also saying that they're all beautiful.
Yeah.
So why are they that bad? Anyway,
exactly.
anyway, so that's something. So this is like, these are like the major points that you get throughout this first season with the Queen Charlotte, is that she's very annoyed by this woman who seems to know more than she does about the gossip, and on top of that also teases her on a regular basis in her column. So she is determined to track down who this woman is, and I don't know, probably kill her, stop her anyway.
Yeah,
but maybe prosecute her in some way. I'm not sure. She's not, honestly, Charlotte is a lot more outwardly tough than she actually is, which you get a lot
to her bite.
Yeah, like you get a lot of that in her prequel series too. In the Queen Charlotte series, you see a lot of that, which I will say, on rewatching the seasons, and I watched Queen Charlotte more recently.
Me too.
Holy shit, the younger and older versions.
They do such a
oh
good
my
job.
God, it's the mannerisms, the way that their facial expressions work,
it's so
the way that
good.
they like
the whole.
Yeah, the way that they express themselves.
Yeah.
Oh, it's incredible. I haven't seen anything like that since... what was that adaptation? Little Fires Everywhere.
Oh, that was so good.
The girl who played the young version of Kerry Washington
that.
in that, if you guys haven't seen that, the girl who plays the young version in the flashbacks of Kerry Washington's character, oh my God.
Yeah, she does such a good job. I'm going to rewatch that because that was such a good show.
It was really good. It's really upsetting, but it's really good.
Upsetting. We should do an episode on that.
Oh, we should do.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. We'll get there eventually.
We'll get there when we get there.
So, okay, and so... just if you're still here for some reason you haven't watched this show and you don't know, just know that I'm going to get into spoiler territory with a lot of stuff with this right now, because we find out at the end of the season who Lady Whistledown is. And it's a character named Penelope Featherington, who is from another family.
Well-to-do.
A fairly well-to-do family. Not as well-to-do as the Bridgertons.
No, but they are highly regarded.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, people hate them, but they're rich. Whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. They've kind of got like like a very like Cinderella-y feel.
Oh
to
gosh,
them.
do
Like,
they ever?
with the two ugly
The
stepsisters.
two shitty sisters. They're not ugly. They're
not
just
steps-
mean.
They're just mean. They're not stepsisters.
Unfortunately, they're sisters by blood, but they're shitty.
And like Penelope is like, they're always dressing her in colors that don't look good on her.
That's why this glow up for her season is going to be so great, because it's finally colors that look nice on her. And also her, especially in season 1, they do it a bit in season 2, but especially in season 1, her curls are tightly coiled all the time and in these really weird intricate patterns that don't do her any favors at all.
Yellow. Always yellow.
So much fucking yellow. I don't know why her mom insists on dressing her in yellow.
And like she even calls it out herself. Like she's like, "Oh, yellow.
Yay,
again."
my dress is yellow." So the Featheringtons are like, they're kind of goofy. Like they're funny because they're very over the top. They're very brightly dressed all the time. Their mom is absurd most of the time.
She's like the evil stepmom, kind of.
But like funnier, and especially as time goes on, you understand her more. So it's like the evil stepmother if you didn't hate her. And you were like, okay, I kind of get where she's coming from here.
Yeah, she's a great character.
Yeah, she's a really good character. She does a really excellent job with finding all of like the human moments within the times where she's really shitty about stuff.
Yeah.
And I love that all the girls' names start with the letter P because their mom's name is Portia.
Oh, is that what
And
it
then
is?
the girls are Prudence, Philippa, and Penelope. Yikes.
Yeah. And like Philippa like actually falls in love in this season.
Oh my god, okay. I didn't
the cutest little guy.
on the rewatch that I did of this.
You forgot about him,
I
right?
forgot that this was like a plot point where like all of these women, so Marina Thompson, who Colin becomes involved with, is their sort
cousin.
of second cousin or something. I don't know. She's a relative from out in the country and she comes to London for the season. And of course, Portia's all pissed because she's like,
she's prettier than my daughter.
Yeah, well, because at first she's there and she's like, oh, she's going to be dowdy and country and blah, blah, blah. And she shows up and she's beautiful. And of course, Penelope's the only one who's nice about that. She's like, oh, she's lovely. Like, she's beautiful.
Penelope's just lovely. And I think that's why Portia, like, shoos her with a firm hand.
Yeah, of course. And she's also, of course, like, probably even now, but of the time too, of course, because she's like short and curvier. So for them, they're like, oh, she's too fat. Like they do say it at least a few times.
Do they really? I never caught that.
Yeah, there's one time in one of the first couple of episodes where
Colin says it. Even
does he?
He says something about her being like. Doesn't he say something about her?
I don't remember that part. That would be terrible if it were true.
Yeah, I think he says something about her, like him never being interested in her.
Yeah, but not because of that.
Oh, okay.
He just says it's the thing in the second season.
Oh, right, okay.
But yeah, no, in the first season, her sisters make a comment about the fact that she's 2 stone heavier than she should be.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
So a stone for anybody who's
10 pounds?
14.
14 pounds, sorry.
Yeah, so 1 stone is 14 pounds. It's how people measure weight, like in the UK.
Weird. Okay.
They still do now.
Oh, wow. Yeah. All right. Hey, whatever. So she's the quote unquote wallflower. She's the dowdy sister. She's the one that nobody pays any attention to, blah, 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 blah. And then that's it. Philippa's the middle child and Prudence is the oldest. I would say that Philippa's the stupid one. And
she's kind of goofy.
Prudence is also kind of dumb, but she's mean.
She is mean, whereas Philippa doesn't seem as mean. She just kind of goes
along with
what
Prudence's ideas, and that's what she is, but she's like a bit stupid. But this was something, on the rewatch of this, Philippa, that's it, finds a fiance throughout the course of this first season, all these men have been coming to the house to call on Marina because she's lovely, and they all want to get to know her and maybe marry her. So she's getting all these gifts and stuff, and then there's this one guy who shows up for Philippa, and everybody's really surprised because none of these girls have warranted any attention at all this whole season. And I forgot that this was actually cute, and I'm like, damn, writers, like, good job. When they
like bond over their love of cheese.
Yeah, when they go to the ball,
go
to the ball, and they just like start talking about cheese, and she's like, I like cheese too. I was like, why is this?
It's so perfect for her character.
Yeah,
because her character has like zero depth.
Yeah.
So.
Also, I don't know if this is actually the case, but I thought I had seen a quick thing that the actress who plays Philippa's character is dating the actor who plays Benedict, which is cute.
Oh,
that's nice.
That's cute.
Yeah. Yeah, right there. Okay. So that's their family unit. Unfortunately, their dad is useless.
And a huge gambler.
Oh, he has a really
does not give a shit about his family.
He has a really massive gambling problem.
Debt,
so they're in like a huge amount of debt, and Portia doesn't even know about it for a period of time until she finds out.
Until the modiste says you can't pay.
She's like, hey, your accounts are past due, and I don't have payment for anything. She's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then that's it. Goes through all of his stuff because you like hate Portia all you want for being mean and very self-serving and stuff, which she can do, but she's also very intelligent, very cunning,
very resourceful,
and very much able to stand on her own. Thank God, because her husband's fucking useless
and gets himself killed at the end of the season.
Oh my God, yeah, that's like they make him kill himself.
Oh, is that what they do?
Because there's like a bottle of poison on the table that they're there, and they're like, hey, well, you can't pay your debts.
Okay, rewind. So basically what happens is he is in a huge amount of debt. Yeah. Portia figures it out. She like goes into his desk and finds all these receipts of like money that he owes. And then he just like starts sobbing and she's like, Jesus Christ, like calm the fuck down.
This was very much theirs, for instance, is a really great contrast to the Bridgerton house because theirs was very much just a marriage of convenience. It was their parents married them off to each other. There is no love between these two characters.
And so he then fixes a fight in his favor.
Yes.
So he convinces a boxer to throw
named
the
Will
fight.
Mondrich.
Yeah, to throw the fight in his favor so he can win. And that's what happens.
Yes.
And so he wins. And Mondrich then has made some money off of this as well, although he feels that he's lost his honor.
Will is a lovely character.
He is.
He and his wife are like a really nice just addition of like working class people within this high society.
Rich. But he makes a good amount of money on this fight. And we see in the second season that he uses that money to open a club.
Yeah, like a gentleman's club.
Like a gentleman's club. No strippers.
No, sorry. I mean more like a cigar lounge or something.
Like a drinking club.
Yeah. They do bring women in sometimes in the other one.
True.
Probably not his, but in the other one.
Yeah. Anyway, so what's very confusing about this whole thing, or not confusing, is that Mr. Featherington, or Lord Featherington, has like won a shit ton of money at this point. So he goes and he pays off like some of the bills that they have, and everybody's like super happy. But then it becomes very obvious that he just goes and blows all the money immediately.
No, it's a really severe like addiction issue that he has, obviously, and he just this character cannot. He's his own worst enemy. He cannot get out of any of this at all.
And then so the last scene where you see him in is that he is being cornered by these, who they are, loan sharks
debt
or
collectors
or something. And so the understanding is that he has lost all of his money again, and so they make him kill himself.
So they basically, that's it. So he dies, and Portia is left basically destitute at the end of that first season and waiting for their closest male relative to show up and take over.
Yeah,
the Featherington
that's how
household.
Things go.
Because she wouldn't have been allowed to take things over and do anything at all. So there's what I really appreciate about that is just that's it. She could be such a one-note character, Portia, but she's so great, and I really love that in the second season we see just how much of a mom she is. Like,
she really is. Like,
when push comes to shove,
yeah, she loves her daughters,
and she does a lot of her own covering up of things in this season because she's given this cousin Marina who shows up, who then she realizes is pregnant, and she's like, for fuck's sake, now I have this bullshit to deal with. So she tries to get her married off
to some old cranky,
old gross guy. And Marina decides that because she had received a letter allegedly from the man whose baby she was pregnant with, who was off fighting in a war in Spain, and she receives a forged letter back from Portia, and like saying that he wants nothing to do with her or with the baby or whatever, because just to get it out of her head that anything's ever going to happen. So she becomes determined to find a husband, which she needs to be able to do. Which again, Marina would be a character that would be easy to hate, and I get that. But really, if you
can't
see
either, I appreciate her character development.
And if you see things from really when you take a look at like the time period, honestly, like there's nothing but kind of understanding to be had. Does she go about it in a great way? No,
because she goes after Colin, right?
Yeah.
Like
and Penelope is in love with Colin. She's been in love
Marina's
with him for years.
Kind of mean to Pen about it. Yeah. Also, side note, it's really interesting that she's Penelope. Penn,
of course.
Writer.
The writer.
Anyway, so Marina's quite mean to her about things. But at the end of the day, she's got to look after herself and her child, and she doesn't want to get married off to some old creepy dude, you know?
That's it. And so unfortunately, in her sort of like vindictiveness about this, Penelope writes a column as Lady Whistledown that exposes Marina as being pregnant and having been pregnant since the moment that she showed up in London. So this causes a chain reaction from like how hurt Colin is, because again, his naivete really, really led him to believe that this girl was like in love with him, even though, in my opinion, she didn't even do that great of a job of selling it. So I'm like, I think this was just you being a little bit too naive, my guy.
I think you saw your sister getting married and you
were like, I could do that too. I should do that too. And the first girl that I think is beautiful to come along, I'll just do that. Like, okay. All right.
Okay, Colin.
All of that does lead, however, to, unfortunately, Marina finding out that the man, Sir George Crane, who she was with back home and who she's pregnant by, unfortunately died while he was away fighting. His brother, who's also a very good person, Sir Philip Crane, shows up to explain everything that's happened and offers basically, he's like, you are pregnant. This is my like niece or nephew or whatever.
Yeah, it is my duty.
This is my duty. So like, you know, if you marry me, like I will make sure that you're provided for, that any kids or whatever are provided for. No problem. Like this is what we should do. And she refuses at first, but she does wind up accepting because unfortunately she does not have much more of a choice. And honestly, luckily we do see her again in the second season, and Philip is a good person.
And
like
she seems quite content.
She's okay.
I mean, I just get the feeling that she's not like a very nice person at the bottom of it all. So you're kind of like she's got more of a tendency of like a Portia Featherington.
Well, she's closer to, she's a little bit more selfish than some of the other characters, I think is what it is at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I think that you do see, unfortunately, that like, you know, she is grateful at the end to have found out that actually it turns out that Sir George was writing back to her and they were going to run away together and get married and have the baby and everything. And he obviously loved her, which is nice for her to have heard. But it does, there's a lot of sort of melancholy and sadness around Marina's character. All of that to say that's an interesting sort of thing. And you do, I know that there's been confirmation that Ruby Barker, who plays Marina, she's not coming back to the show. Yeah. I do feel bad. I didn't do a ton of looking into this, whatever, do it if you want to, that apparently she had dealt with like some mental health issues while she was filming the show, and she had a bad time and was not appreciative of the production people at all for different reasons. It sounds like she was struggling a lot, so that's really unfortunate. Yeah. She's not coming back because obviously she really didn't want to also, so I hope that she's good. I hope she's okay.
Yeah, definitely.
But I do understand that also, I think, again, because there's so many like Colin and Penn shippers and stuff, she got like a lot of hate when I'm like, she's playing a fucking character.
I know, it's a character. She didn't choose that.
Yeah, no, not at all. I'm sorry. I just want to say, if anybody left like a disparaging comment on like her social media or something, you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
So just be aware of that. You're an idiot. She's playing a character and she played it well.
She's an actress. That's what she does.
That's what she was supposed to do, and that's what she did. Yep. So, moving on. I think the last person who would be really fun to like mention and talk about and stuff just for their role and everything is Lady Danbury, because we haven't talked about her really.
Now, okay. I have issues with Lady Danbury's eyebrows, but other than that, like, I love her. Like, I don't know why they had to put two upside down smiley faces on her face.
They do look a bit weird, but God, I love her so much.
She is wonderful. So how she yells at Simon and stuff.
She's great. So Lady Danbury was a friend of Simon's mother before she passed away, and she actually helped him overcome quite a terrible stutter that he had as a child, and she's like his godmother, and she like semi-raised him basically, and she's been pretty wonderful to him, so they have this really nice relationship, which is great.
Where she basically just berates him
where she calls him out on his bullshit, which I really appreciate.
All the time, which is great. That. Yeah, love that.
Love that for her. And she's a widow. She's been widowed for years and years and years. You get a lot of her backstory in the Queen Charlotte show,
which makes me love her even more.
Oh God, So sweet. Anyway, and her and the Queen have known each other for decades now,
been
and they do
friends,
have a really fun
They
relationship.
have a hilarious
It's
relationship.
so funny.
Because, like, at the end of the day, the Queen is still the Queen, right?
Yes.
And, like, there's still these societal norms
Of course,
that have
and
to
there's
be
still
followed.
a divide that exists there,
But,
obviously.
like, Lady Danbury's the only one who can, like, call the Queen out on her shit
Yeah.
without, like, explicitly calling her out on it. And, like...
She's smart about
And, like,
it.
she still has to call her, like, Your Majesty and
Oh,
stuff.
of course.
But they're, like, best friends. So
That's
it's, like,
so cute.
me calling you Your Majesty and stuff. And,
being like,
finding,
Megan, you're being a shithead.
finding the most polite way of being like, Megan, you're being an idiot.
Yeah. Because that's what best friends do.
Yeah.
We're able to talk to each other about things. That's how it works.
Totally.
So, yeah, so it's great. They do have a really fun relationship. She has a really great, and she's like, I'm sure that, I find in the book she's a little bit more crotchety overall, her character, but in this, she's just very, like, she's a very strong woman. I feel like she's one that Eloise would love her, basically, because she's, very independent, very strong. She's been on her own for a long time, and she's, like, lived, like, a pretty content life in the sense that she's been like, no, I'm happy, thanks, doing what I'm doing, living the life that I'm living, and having the fun that I'm having. It's
And
pretty.
she does have fun. You can tell.
Yeah.
Like, she just lives her best life.
It's great. It's good for her. That's awesome. I love
Totally.
seeing, like, the single character who's, like, happy at the point in her life that she's at, and she's got a great relationship with Simon. I love her relationship with Violet Bridgerton, with the mom. They have a really sweet like, friendship that you can tell that, like, as their kids essentially are kind of being thrust together over time, they're developing even more of a friendship than they had before, because I think they knew each other as, like, good acquaintances before, but now you can tell that they're really forming this very genuine friendship, and with the way that they talk to each other and everything, and it's so sweet, and I really, really like it. I think it's adorable.
like, Lady Danbury's like your fairy godmother character, basically.
If she were sarcastic. I love her. Like, I love her with the oldest Bridgerton boys, because they all know that she's going to make them do something that they don't want to do. So they always try to avoid her at parties, and she always catches them at the last second.
She corners them.
And
when
she's like, here, escort me to get some punch.
Yeah.
She's so funny.
so good.
She's great.
I
She's,
aspire to be like her as an old lady.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
If I'm at some point in my life when I'm, like, much older, if I'm, like, a widow or something, I would like to act exactly the way the lady did.
Even if I'm not a widow, I'm just gonna
Probably.
act exactly
Yeah,
the way
you're
she
fine.
does. I'm just gonna
You're
call
like-
everyone out on their shit. all
Yeah,
the time.
that's it. You're like, I'll be older than her. I'll be, like, in my 80s, and I'll just be doing that. That'll be
Totally.
great. Yeah, she's incredible. And I guess the last thing that we can kind of, like, touch on a little bit, I know we've hopped back and forth a lot, but if we do a play-by-play, guys, it'll be like a 4-hour episode, and I can't do it. It's too long. I'm sure it's too long for all of
Trust
you
me,
as well.
just go watch the show. It's way better than
Yeah,
our
it's so much
play-by-play.
better than anything that we're gonna talk about. Is probably it's probably the relationships between the characters. I love, obviously, like, Simon and Daphne's relationship development. Of course, it's the focus of the season, but it's great. They do a really great job of moving from friendship into something more genuine, even though especially Simon is deny the whole time. When he comes around, he really does, and it's good. And it's lovely for them, and that's great. But I love the relationship between Violet and Lady Danbury. I love the relationship between certain, like, Bridgerton siblings. Like,
Benedict and Eloise.
Oh my god, I love them.
They're so cute.
They're like slight outliers again, in the sense that they want to do something a little bit different than just take care of the family and go get married and go do this
they're
and go
also
do that.
like he's the second oldest boy and she's the second
Oldest girl. So
Yeah.
there is slightly less responsibility on both of them, but still potentially a lot of expectations.
and they're not happy to follow the paths that they're supposed to follow.
No, neither of them really are. So they have a really sweet relationship, which I really like. I really like the development of Eloise and Daphne's relationship as well, how things start, like, a little, again, more contentious, because neither of them wants to understand the other very well, and both of them would almost like to be the other to a degree.
Yeah, I mean, Eloise says to Daphne at one point, "Thank you for being so perfect so I don't have to."
Because she knows that she's completely different from her, and she'll never be the way that Daphne is, even if she wanted to. Like, it just wouldn't happen.
Totally.
So I really appreciate those. I'm really looking forward to these future seasons and probably getting to develop some of the other characters a little bit more. It looks like in the third season we're going to see a lot more Francesca, because it's her coming out season that we saw.
There's rumors that she's going to be the diamond of the season.
Yeah, per that trailer anyway, it looks like it's her coming out season. So I think that we're going to get a bit more of a focus on her, which is going to be really cool, because I know they switched actresses there, but it'll be nice to get more of a focus on that character. I liked Francesca's book. I thought it was an interesting one. Her story is a little bit different from some of the others. Like Eloise's story is a little bit different. Francesca's story is a little bit different. It's not like during the London season, this is what we're doing and we're going through like
every
this exact
time.
No. The books do kind of veer off.
I don't want to hear
that.
it.
Okay. Jeez. The books do kind of veer off from that as like time goes on, which makes sense because eventually like boring.
Yeah. Totally.
For all of them to be the same.
Boring.
I really like this first season overall. I think everybody did, obviously, because it, really introduced us to all of the characters and stuff. But again, it's sort of like with every first film versus a sequel, giving us that extra, that like more development, that more stretching things out as time goes on, really just kind of, has a tendency to make me kind of prefer things as they develop. But we're going to talk about the second season in the next episode, and talk about all of those kinds of things and our expectations for the third as well. So you guys can join us for that. But in the meantime, if you have any like comments or any like, feelings that you have about like the first season of Bridgerton, you can let us know about that over on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at FullyBookedCA. And you can also check out our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/book was way better. But until next week, guys, keep on reading.
Thanks, everyone.